So, good evening. Good evening. So today, the talk on the essence of Lama Chöpa. After going through the last 2 evenings talking on Zong, mind training, I feel that is the essence of Lama Chöpa. But maybe just to give like a something like a background on Lama Chöpa. So many of you are familiar with the text, with the practice. And Lama Chöpa, this one, composed by Benjen Lobsang Chögyal Genze, who was the tutor of the great fifth Dalai Lama. So this Lama Chöpa, this is Lama Chöpa more like combining with also not only guru yoga, but also something like deity yoga, right? And as you all know, then many of you know that this is like on the highest yoga tantra practice. There's the first 2 days of my talk on Gaden Hagyama, the original text. I think somehow there isn't the connection to highest yoga tantra is not so clear, at least not from the verses, right? Of course, the closest thing would probably be the reference to the 3 deities, right? Chenrezig, Manjushri, and Vajrapani, but this also exists in the non-highest yoga tantra, for example, in the Kriya tantra as well. So anyhow, the point is, in order to do the Gandhian Lagyama practice, it is not necessary that one needs to combine the Guru Yoga together with a deity yoga according to the highest yoga tantric practice, right? Whereas if one were to go with with like a word by word practice of Lama Chöpa, then this is quite clear that it's connected with as yoga tantra, right? So this is one differentiation. But having said that, also there is a way of combining together of combining Gandhian Lagyama practice with highest yoga tantric practice as well, right? So therefore, then we something like the addition of what we call the 9-line mixema, right? And one interesting thing is that usually we say Gandhian Lagyama is the Guru Yoga in the Segu tradition, and then Lama Chöpa in the Ensa tradition, right? In the Wensa. Here, is it whispered lineage? Wensa Ninju, right? The Wensa whispered lineage. But also actually in this 9-line mixema, then there's also 2, one according to Segu and one according to Ensa Ninju. And the one that we usually use when we use the 9-line mixema, ironically, this is in the Wensa Ninju, not the Segu tradition, right? So the Segu tradition, then it's another set of 9 verses. So like this, and then when we combine it with Kanden Lagema practice in the this highest yoga tantra practice, then of course, then we do have additional verses, and then that, and then the penultimate verse, then like 3 times with some modification, right? With like this, right? So, so that's just one thing that I wanted to point out. Now with Lama Chöpa, then the structure is quite similar. We also have the 7 limbs, right? But of course, more extensive, and then the Lamrim part coming later, right? But before that, from the very beginning, then it's very clear that there is this emphasis on highest yoga tantric practice. So this is quite clear from the wordings. So the essence of Lama Chöpa, actually Lama Chöpa, Guru Puja in Sanskrit, right? So Guru, the Lama, and then Puja, the Tibetan word Chöpa. Here the meaning of this offering, making offerings to the guru. Yeah. So what does that mean? You know, offerings to the guru, to the teacher. What does that mean? Here it is explained that Chöpa, offerings, to offer means to generate what we call sagme, something like untainted, right? Untainted great bliss, right? Untainted great bliss. So this is the meaning of Chöpa. So this is the meaning, and then this is something not so easy, right? It's not so easy. And then Lama, as we were talking about yesterday, conventional and ultimate guru, right? Conventional and ultimate guru. So the essence of guru devotion is guru yoga, and the essence of guru yoga is to generate great bliss. Not merely, of course, even though we describe it by making these clouds of offerings to the guru, to your guru, we then generate great bliss in the guru, right? So this is one way of understanding, but ultimately it's really generating great bliss within yourself, right? So this is, if you think like this, then this is then there's a connection with the ultimate guru, right? So now we are not thinking of generating great bliss in the conventional lama, but within the ultimate guru, generating great bliss within Dharmakaya, right? So this is, I think, like the essence, right? So that's one thing. And then for me, I mean, this beginning part is quite high and quite deep. So I feel it's beyond me. But then the Lamrim part, for example, in the Lama Chöpa, this is something like a teaching. I feel it touches on the things, and it deals with some of my issues, right? So for me, then the Lamrim part of the Lama Chöpa, then one could take that, for example, as the essence of Lama Chöpa, right? The one that you can actually take with you, and then you can apply it in your daily life, right? So the Lamrim part, you know, this when you have the time, when you look at it, of course, it covers a wide range, but maybe just from the beginning up till where, up till, for example, in Shita, up till the Tonglen practice, So this is very good, right? This is very, it is somehow, it gives us something to work on, right? Whereas when you go into very highest yoga tantra, if you were to go directly, then somehow it feels a little, I feel there's a disconnect, there's a disconnect because we are not there yet, right? So then the Lamrim part, this is, I think, this really is where all the essential practice connected with Lama Chöpa is presented, right? So that part, one could, for example, do that, So I think in some centers, they would, of course, do the other parts all in Tibetan, but when it comes to the Lamrim part, then they would do it in their language, right? So I think somehow this is nice if we could do something similar here, right? But then this is probably preferably when we don't have the Sangha members, because when the Sangha members, then it seems that there's like some sort of protocol there, right? But when you do it more just like the lay Sangha, for example, then this might be a good thing, just food for thought. So like that, and then for example, and then thinking about the Tonglen practice, the practice of giving and taking, right? Taking something like the challenges and all the difficulties that all others face, then taking on that difficulty and then sharing all positivity that one has with all, right? The Tonglen practice, the practice of giving and taking, for example, then for some of you, I think this is suitable. And then also thinking about, I think something like what else? For example, on the more basic level, then thinking about reflecting, self-reflection, reflecting on your ability, for example. We humans, we are so fortunate. We are so fortunate in the way that we have this power of empathy, and naturally we are gifted with empathy, that I think other animal species, non-human animal species, they don't, that they lack, or at least they don't seem to exhibit these qualities, right? So having this, then this is really, really a wonderful quality, and perhaps this is where we have to begin. Perhaps this is where we have to begin from, using this gift, right? Okay, so last night I had the feeling that as we were about to stop our session because of the time, I felt that there were a few of you who wanted to share something, So maybe perhaps we could continue with that, We could perhaps continue with that. So please.
Anyone? Okay, Sim, Mui, Long. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your precious teachings all these days. My question is about death. It's about death.
About?
Death.
Death, okay.
Yeah. So eventually all of us will die. So I think we will have to save this clip and refer it back next time. So, speak louder, okay. So my question is, what is your advice at the moment of death? I mean, we'll be suffering, we'll be afraid, we'll be in pain, and then can you give us some pit instruction, something that is easy to remember? Then we'll keep this clip so that in future we can always refer it back. Thank you.
This is a tough question. So usually, I think habituation is a very important thing here, right? Habituation. So in a way, how we live our lives and how we live our lives, let us say, as a Buddhist, I think is a way to prepare ourselves for that crucial moment. I think so, right? As the saying goes, that a great and an excellent Dharma practitioner will be happy to die, right? And then how does it go? And then like a middling Dharma practitioner will not be afraid, and then then maybe a mediocre practitioner will at least have regrets or something like that, right? Maybe I got some of the was in wrong order. Maybe the second or third. Do you think it's in the right order, or maybe it's the opposite order? So to die without regrets, and then to die without having fear, right? Which seems more
Normally without regret and then without fear.
Uh-huh.
Because you have no regrets, you have no fear.
Okay. So like this, right? So there's a saying that goes like this. The point here is that, of course, death is something that we are all naturally fearful of, including myself. I am afraid of death, of course, right? But then, this is, I think, why we are practicing the Dharma, because the Dharma helps us to prepare us for adverse conditions, right? It helps us in dealing with difficult situations, in dealing with our fears, right? And death is one of our fears, right? Is one of our fears. So by thinking about Dharma, it helps us. And here maybe when we combine, for example, like karma, the rebirth, the concept of rebirth, and then with positive actions, right? When we combine that, then I think maybe this is where not being afraid of dying and even sort of like being happy to take new rebirth, that part also comes when you combine these things, right? Okay, this is one thing, but of course, in the highest Yoga Tantra, as you know, then there are different ways of dealing with death and how with the various dissolution stages, right? With the dissolution of the elements and so forth. So that explains in great detail how to meditate on this dissolution stages, right? So death here, ideally, it's not an instant death, but it's like gradually one sort of loses all these sense faculties, and then the elements, then they go through the various dissolution stages. So in highest yoga tantra, that explains how to deal with that, and it's also known as like turning the three base kayas into the path or something, right? Usumamkir. But from a more general point of view, from a general explanation, I think for me, preparing for death and then preparing living, how to live, how to live a good life is in a way preparing how to die in a good way. For me, it's like what is the word? Like two sides of the same coin, something like that. And I don't like to think from this viewpoint of how do I prepare for my death, but rather I would like to think how do I live my life in the best possible way, right? Maybe in the correct way might sound a bit too dogmatic, right? But then how do I live my life in the best possible way, or how to live in the best way possible, or how to live life so that I can serve the community that I live, or that how to live a life so that I can contribute to the environment, right, to the world, or to the universe. So this you can think on different levels, right? So I think that's how I like to see it. But then, in a way, if I guess if I am really dedicated to living my life to its fullest potential, being the best person that I can be, right? To really live up to my potentials, I guess, then indirectly I'm also, I think, preparing for my death, right? Indirectly, I think. So perhaps this is one way, living, living, living life, in the best possible way that one can or one can do is really the best way to prepare for that final moment in this life, the final moment of this life. So maybe like that. Yes.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
And then on the other hand, then, like I think dedication, for example, can really go a long way, right? Dedication. So, or with every good single action, then to finish that, to complete that with a strong dedication, for example. I think this also can go long ways, and it also has like this effect, down the road, right? And in relation to that, then before doing anything, before taking any action, then setting up the motivation, right? Because your action can only go far as your motivation, right? So then perhaps the motivation, and then when you then bring that to closure with dedication, I think perhaps combining these two, it would also help. It will also help in I guess in the process of journeying to the next stage, right? So maybe like this. I think that's a little vague. I think I was a little vague there. I sometimes I somehow feel that this answer was somewhat vague. Answer was vague. The question was very pointed, but the answer was like a very general thing. It's like going all over the place. What we call something like, I don't know, hitting stones in the dark, you know. So then you just hit throw a bunch of stones, and then, you know, fingers crossed, it hits something. It hits, you know, the target. But that's yeah. This is a difficult question, and a question that people like me are not willing to ask at all, right? But thank you for sharing that, and to ponder on this question. Yes, I will definitely do that, to ponder on this question. Thank you.
Dear Rinpoche,
Yes.
actually I have two questions, but I think they are related. The first one is in the Vajrayana traditions, if does every teaching or the Dharma text need to be oral transmitted in order for us to, so that we can read it and do the practices?
So usually with Vajrayana, then it says something like empowerment is the doorway to the doorway to Vajrayana, right? And then what was it? Bodhicitta, the doorway to the great vehicle, right? And then something like refuge is the doorway to the Dharma, right? Something like this, right? So generally, before reading commentaries and so forth, like for example, like sadhanas, then one should ideally first receive the empowerment, and then once being empowered, then you may proceed with the actual practice, right? Which is the sadhana, right? Dup-tap, right? So like this. But then, does that mean that for every tantric material, you need to first receive an empowerment specific to that practice? No, this is not necessary. But nevertheless, empowerment to one of the four tantric sets is necessary. Yeah, is necessary. And also, for example, what we have, the permission blessings, Jenang, I think also for that, a full-fledged empowerment to any of these four tantras is I think a prerequisite, right? Is a prerequisite. But once you enter one of these, for example, if you were to go directly receive a highest yoga tantra full-fledged empowerment, and then it's not necessary that in order to receive a permission blessing from, let's say, Kriya Tantra, then you can receive, you can proceed with the permission blessing right away. So you don't need to be empowered into the Kriya Tantra. You don't have to receive the Kriya Tantra empowerment. So there's this distinction. So usually, but such is not true. The opposite is not true. The other way around, right? So you may receive like a full-fledged Kriya Tantra, but then can you access a highest Yoga Tantra sadhana? No. Then you have to first receive a highest Yoga Tantra empowerment. Yeah.
And the second question is a simpler one, which is like if never officially or properly attended Lamrim courses, yeah, can we just do our self-reading, reading up the text?
Yes, yes. This I think is possible. The Lamrim, especially if it is only the Sutra Lamrim. For example, the Great Fifth Lamrim, I think is only from the viewpoint of Sutra, right? But then, for example, the Swift Path, right? And then, what is the other one? Delam, Easy Path. I think those are connected with Tantra, right? So then maybe it's okay to just have access to the Sutra part, but perhaps not the Tantric part. Yes, ideally. But these days, it's like all the information is just a few clicks away, right? And you just press a few things, and then you see all this highest yoga tantra imagery there. You just tab maybe 3 or 4 times, and then you have the sadhana right there. So this is quite strange. In the early days, this was practiced in highest secrecy, right? I think one of the lamas of the past said that proliferation of tantra will be like the downfall, will be the downfall, right? So this was one of the prophecies. So this is quite it troubles me, where so many of these secret materials, it's almost like what's the word, like secret in the open?
Hiding in open secret.
What?
Hiding in open space.
Right. Or something like an open secret. But open secret, I think, has a negative connotation, so it's maybe not the right word. The elephant in the room. I don't know if that's if that expression would apply here. The elephant in the room. But you get the meaning. You get the point, right? You get the point. So I think highest yoga tantra is best left in secrecy and not properly discussed. At least some of the details, But I think I can say it like this. Generally, because now many of you have seen this imagery, and since that is where most of these misconceptions rise or are connected with, then as long as you know that many of these imageries and iconographies, they are not to be taken literally. This is very important, right? This has to be made clear, right? And this can be made clear out in the open, and this is completely fine. I feel that is very important. So this highest yoga tantric iconography imagery, that nowadays we cannot stop this, right? We cannot censor this anymore. We are beyond something like the censorship, So because it's already out there and it's so accessible and everybody knows about it, right? So now what needs to be made clear is that how to mitigate the misunderstanding. Mitigate, is that right? Yeah. So something like damage limitation, right? So then for this this clarification is, I think, very important. It's so important. Yeah. So then, otherwise, then people misuse this. People have wrong ideas about our iconography. People have wrong ideas about the highest yoga tantra practice. People get wrong idea about guru devotion or the relationship between the student and the teacher, right? So these things definitely needs to be made very clear. Which is, I think, very important. Really, not only for something like not only to sort of safeguard the image of Vajrayana, not only for that, but really to, I think, really to something like create a safe environment for people, especially for the practitioners. This is important. Otherwise, then as we are already familiar with these stories, scandals, etc. Right? So this needs to be made very clear. So regarding the iconography, this is not at all. It is not a literal explanation. It is not. There is a symbol, right? So usually, like this union, they are symbolizing the union of wisdom, right? Which is emptiness, and then the method, which is what we call the great bliss. So it's the union of that. It's really the union of the method and the wisdom, right? So as long as we understand that, then we won't have misunderstandings from seeing the images, right? From the images. So like this, and the Guru devotion part, I think we talked about it yesterday. So I think that is quite clear. So this is like, how did I get from your question? The second part of your question to this is a big mystery. I don't know how I just went from there like this, right? But well, anyhow, thank you. Yes.
Rinpoche, so we have some friends online, Facebook Live. So
Okay.
there are some questions that has been asked, and this is from Henry Cho. Dear Rinpoche, how can I know who is my root guru, and how to connect to my root guru through prayers and visualization or meditation?
That's a very interesting question. This kind of question is almost like asking, how do I know that this is the person that I will spend the rest of my life with? Then if someone were to ask me this question, I would find it very difficult to answer that. I mean, who can really answer that question, right? Yes, just imagine being asked this question, and then what do you do, right? So, but that's a, I mean, there are definitely parallels there. I mean, finding your spiritual guru and finding your life partner or your future spouse, right? I think there are parallels there. So how do you find the right person? yeah, who you'll spend the rest of your life with. Of course, this would first, you would have to first look for this partner, and you have to first, and then I think we all sort of have some criteria for how this person should be. That only difference is in the case of gurus, maybe the external part is not so important, right? But then the similar thing is when you look for your life partner, then you really have to make sure of the inner qualities, right? Otherwise, if it is just on just like, what is the word? Like the first impression, if you base everything on first impression, of course, then that is really not a good way to look for a life partner. And the same thing applies to spiritual gurus, right? So definitely to not do that. But nevertheless, first impressions, of course, they are important, right? And then, so I think one has to first be clear of the criteria. This is number one, right? To set the criteria, yeah? To set the criteria. So this is important. And these days, we have many centers, we have websites, we have gatherings here and there. So really, I think the market, the guru market, is quite big. It's a thriving market. It's a thriving market. So I think you can really go to many different centers. You hear, oh, some Lama is here, coming there. Okay, you go and check, and then you hear, oh, next week so and so is coming to that center. Then you can go and have a look. So really, one is free to do that. Really, and really, yeah. Even if you are already, I think, like going to a center, you are free to go to other centers as well, right? So then you can do that. That's one way of looking. I think you have to search, right? And then I think also looking at like the reputation. This is also one way. If a person has a very good reputation and you look around, it's a person might have a very good reputation, but then maybe there are also something like maybe some unpleasant words about the person in question. So again, take a look at those. It's a bit like when you go online shopping. Usually it's good if there are lots of ratings. That's usually a good thing. And then you have to look at how many stars, right? And then don't only look at the 5-star reviews, but also look at the 1-star reviews. So like this, I think you have to look at all from all these points. And sometimes I think the 1-star reviews are fake reviews. So again, you have to be careful. And sometimes the 5-star, the 1 5-star review could also be fake. So then you need to be careful. So here it's like something like democracy. I think you have to go with that. So that's one thing. But having said that, if a person, if this person has lots of good reviews, overwhelming majority 5-star reviews, but that doesn't mean that is going to be your guru, right? It does not mean that. The guru is, what do you really want to practice? What do you really want to accomplish in your practice? Your guru, your real guru, the true one, will be the one who can inspire you in that practice, who can really inspire you in that practice that you really wish to bring to life. So it's I think it's going to be that person, right? So for that, I think so. This is, I think, how one looks, searches around for a guru, right? So it's like that. And sometimes you may already have met the guru, but you may not have realized that yet. So it's there are so many different possibilities, so many different possibilities. Yes. So I think something like this. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Rinpoche. Thank you so much for your teaching. I have a question regarding my wish to be reborn in Amitabha Pure Land, because based on the sutra, that is a Buddha that has the vow that at the moment of death, if we have the belief, the merit, and all of our practice dedicated to that wish, we will be able to be reborn there and continue our cultivation until enlightenment. The only thing is that I'm not really suitable for chanting Amitabha because I enjoy silence. So normally I enjoy meditation instead of chanting Amitabha. So I wonder whether that will still lead to the result of my wish to be reborn in a place that I can continue practicing Dharma. Is there any is there any contradictory to the teaching of Amitabha if I meditate and I will still wish to be reborn there? Thank you.
Thank you. So this, I might need some help on the 18th vow. In the 18th vow, in the 18th, right? The 18th of the 48, the 18th, does it say repeating the name 10 times or thinking of the name 10 times?
Recitation of the name.
Recitation of the name 10 times.
Even one time.
Okay, even one time. So then I think the solution is quite clear. Yes. So I saw somewhere, because with Google it's very easy to access, but because it's so easily accessible, then the chances of also finding inaccurate information is also very easy, right? It's also very high. So I came to one source where it says 10 times, right? So let us go with the 10 time, okay? So then I think you can do something like this. Maybe chant Amitabha, the name, only 10 times, but then after that, be in meditation. Yes. So not like constantly chanting, right? So not like one has to chant all the time. It's not like that. You can chant only 10 times, but thinking of Amitabha, can meditate on Amitabha. You can do that as long as you wish, I think. Yeah. And you said only one time. So if that is the 18th vow, then it's even better. You only have to say it only one time, right? Yes, you have to.
At the moment of death,
Uh-huh.
something think of Amitabha, just not reciting sincerely.
Oh.
But then this person has a special affinity for past life to be able to remember. Just one is like to have that good karma. It's not. I mean, you cannot just say, oh, at the last moment, one is like this. So it is very rare. You will cultivate the past life with karma connection.
Yes.
Then you may have the blessing.
Yes.
That's what
Can you please explain again, please?
The one recited is, it is unless this person has very good karma from past cultivation, there's all the blessing, then maybe he has not had been hasn't been had not been a good person. I mean, then suddenly at the last moment, somebody tell him about Amitabha and the Pure Land. He just want to go, and his vow was sincere. His wish was very sincere. Then if one recitation, he'd be able to go, because there's Amitabha's vow. He said anybody who really believes there's a Pure Land and believe in him. But then, I mean, from what I've learned from the Dharma talk, if I'm not wrong, we must have a lot of good karma, a lot of good merit to have this, and also past life merits. Then only you can have this, because it is not easy. We have not been practicing. Suddenly the name pop up at the moment of death. That's what I.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the
So
clarification.
this the little I know.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Rinpoche. Can I say something?
Oh, please.
I think it's how much do you wish to go? It is your desire, the intensity of your desire to go to Amitabha Pure Land. Because all the practice, right, according to Venerable Jing Kong, who is actually, he is the one around the world who propagates this. So he was saying that you really need, why he encouraged people to keep chanting. Like Rinpoche said, is habituation. If you constantly and continuously habitually chant Amitabha Buddha name, then at the last breath, because you're used to Amitabha name popping into your head and your heart. So when it pops up, so you will be able to, because Amitabha Buddha said, if you call my name and you really want to come, you can go. So just like my friend's father, he passed away because he was not a Buddhist, but after he saw people come to chant Amitabha Buddha for his wife, and then the wife turned actually from negative to very positive. So and after the passing away, he decided that because he loves his wife so much, and he said he wants to meet the wife again. So he started chanting Amitabha and giving up, forgetting about everything else. So one afternoon, he called the maid and said, "Hey, quick, come, go and open the door." Then the maid came in, he said, he pointed out of the window into the sky. "You see, I have 3 guests coming. They're coming." Then the maid looked out of the window and said, "Hey, there's nothing." She can't see anything. But the father said, "Quick, go and open the door." So she went to open the door. And when she came back into the room, he already passed on already. Yeah, that is from my friend's mouth. That happened to her father.
Oh.
Yeah, because he really loves the wife so much and he wants to go to Amitabha Buddha Pure Land. So whether you chant out loud or whether it's inside your heart, silently, or when you meditate on Amitabha Buddha, the most important thing is you want to go, sincerely want to go. If, like, for example, people say, if you have an alternative, would you want to go now, or you want to become a billionaire, enjoy life, and then go later? That kind example. Then if you have that resolution and say, no, that's it, I just want to go to Amitabha Pure Land. But sometimes if like, sometimes if your karma is so good, you have done so much merits, right? You may have the opportunity to go to the different heavens also. Right? Like, for example, the Buddha's disciple. He did so much. And at his deathbed, all his relatives were crying. And then suddenly he told them, please move aside. So the relatives thought, oh, this man really, really, lost his senses. But he said, oh, the Dewa kings are here. They are inviting me to heaven. You all move aside.
Oh.
But nobody could see anything. Yeah, because he's a very 大护法, he really is a very staunch and supporter of the of the Buddha. So
Yes.
so these are all not what I say, it's all recorded in the Buddha's teaching and all that. Okay. So that is with regard to the Amitabha Pure Land. So yes, 10 times is because everybody is so busy. You hardly think of anything except your work and then your Google and your handphone all the time. So it's an expedient means to just chant. Like every time you chant 10 times, whether out loud or inside the heart. So like periods of 10 like this lah. But actually if you really want to ensure the probability of you going or ensure the success is to really want to go and make a vow, believe and do practice diligently. So
Yes.
so I think that is the only way. So that's my personal opinion. And actually yesterday sorry, can I just say a little bit about yesterday?
Sure.
Because yesterday you in that teaching, in your teaching, you mentioned the proliferation of thoughts is no good, right? Proliferation of thoughts is no good. Because we will be going on a wild goose chase, thinking this, thinking that in all directions. So with this, right, in the biography of Arahanta Mahabodha, he in his initial practice, he can go into different jhanas. But every time he sit down, different days there will be different progress. Sometimes he can get into the jhana, sometimes he cannot. So at the end of the day, he needs to anchor his thoughts. So he started chanting Buddho, Buddho, Buddho. And with that practice, anchoring his mind on Buddho, he finds it very easy to go into his meditative state. I just want to share it. So when we anchor our minds and thoughts on Amitabha Buddha,
Yes.
at least
Yes.
we won't, be going round and round in circles all over the place.
Yes. Yes.
And
You're
we,
right. You're right. Very
yeah.
true.
So, yeah.
So this is really wonderful. Really wonderful. And how you said about
Thank you.
chanting with sound and without, then we have something similar. Those of you who have done maybe like Vajrayana retreats, that part, repetition with sound and repetition without sound, right? So this is, I think, like chanting with sound and then chanting without sound. So something like mentally chanting, right? But without sound. Yeah.
Rinpoche, can I share just this?
Yes.
Pure Land School, the deliverance prayer for the, the deliverance prayer like for the all sentient being, the disease and the living and the karmic creditors. Then there's one line there which says, you want to go to Amitabha land, you must have, Chinese they will say, sing means staunch belief. Staunch
faith.
belief.
Yes.
Sing, that means you must practice all the meritorious deeds and be a good, and you must recite Amitabha. That is sing. And one is yuan, vow, earnest vow, really earnest, not say, take it so
Yes.
easy. So he said, this tree is just like the ancient incenser. They have three legs, right? The container to put incense.
Yes.
So he said, these three are like the three legs of that container. So leg of one, it doesn't work. You must have three to qualify to this
Yes.
Pure Land. So
Yes.
that was in the prayer of the, they call it thrice yearning, means because that prayer is divided into 3 sessions. So that is the Pure Land School, the difference is that prayer, that only, that type only. Yeah.
Right.
Thrice yearning.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Hey, Leonard.
Yes.
Good evening, Rinpoche.
Yes.
Yeah, just two questions. First question is on the Pure Land School, right? Because in Chinese translation, nian for, right, the word nian has got two meanings. One is to think, 思念, the other is to chant. So is there a dual meaning there? I'm not sure, because Rinpoche keeps saying about thinking, and there could be a literal.
That part for me is very clear.
Okay.
Yes, because chanting, as I was saying, chanting could be with sound, so that's like verbally, and then chant mentally. Yeah. So in the Vajrayana, when we do the retreat, then we have two parts: repetition, so repeating the mantra with sound, and repeating the mantra without sound. So without sound is like abiding in the mantra, just abiding in that energy. Yes.
Thank you, Rinpoche. The second question is,
yeah, this part is very clear. You made it very clear. Both of you made it clear. So thank you. And then the second part is
it's about death. For higher super. I mean, if this is not the right place, then please just let me know to ask this question about death. Of course, I myself is still a beginner. About the long resolution and all that is beyond me. But I keep the yoga, I keep the guru in my heart. So when I die, do I dissolve the guru, or it just dies with me?
The guru at the heart during the clear light. During clear light, this is when the guru comes alive. This is when I think the guru becomes alive. For sure, the guru doesn't dissolve. Yes, and that's when I think that's like the purpose, right? That's when during clear light, that's our practice, is to bring the ultimate guru to life during that crucial moment. Yes.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you.
Rinpoche, I just want to clarify about the text that you taught us yesterday. There's the third verse of leveling out all conception. It states, concentrate all aspirations into one. Can I just clarify from you what the aspiration is? That's question one. Question two is, and seek the path where all paths converge. Can you just elaborate more on what the path is? So the aspiration, the one aspiration, and the path.
I think the aspiration here is aspiring to level out conceptual thoughts, false conceptions, and then all the paths should converge onto the single path of overcoming false conceptions. So this is, I think, I haven't really gone through the commentary in great detail, but I'm somewhat lazy, so I think like this, maybe it's I somehow find that easier to deal with at this point. So all aspirations, concentrate all aspirations into one. We have so many aspirations now. How to bring all of them into these aspirations, into my aspiration, into our aspiration of leveling out false conception. And then there are so many parts, right? There are so many parts. We are presented with so many parts, but then how to bring them all together so that we can overcome false conceptions. So I think something like this. Yes, thank you.
Rinpoche, George is online attending.
Hi, George.
Yeah, Rinpoche. Yeah, George has been attending yesterday as well as tonight, and he has persisted in his question. So George would like to ask the question to Rinpoche: why did Buddha Shakyamuni attain Mahaparinibbana at the age of 85? Was it because he had given all his teachings already, or did it have some other meaning other than impermanence? Thank you.
George, that's a difficult one. So what were the two choices? First one was it as a form of teaching?
Yeah, was it like he has given all the teachings already, so he's going?
Or
Yeah, or does it have some other meaning other than impermanence?
This is a very good question. We can explain the Mahaparinirvana from different viewpoints, right? So from one viewpoint, explaining Buddha, at least like his body, it's just like our body, right? It's just, flesh and blood and everything like that. So going with this theory, then I think this school of thought explains it very simply. It is because of karma, right? The mind of the Buddha is what makes Buddha Buddha. It is not the body of the Buddha that makes Buddha Buddha, right? So the body is a contaminated thing. It's contaminated phenomena, just like ours, right? The body. And Buddha having taken on this form, is explained also through karmic action, through karma. Yeah. So it's a product of karma and also klesha. Both, right? So from this school of thought, it's very clear that the Buddha's body is what we call like the contaminated aggregate, the contaminated aggregate, contaminated by kleshas, right? So because it has been motivated, that the action, the karma has been motivated by afflictive emotions, mental delusions, the three poisons like that, then there's a validity period, right? It would one day cease, simply that. So from that viewpoint, then yes, in a way, time did run out. Yeah. So it's from this viewpoint. Now from the other viewpoint, something like from the great vehicle, from that viewpoint, then it is said something like it's more like the Buddha manifesting this Mahaparinirvana, right? The Buddha was just simply sort of it's just like giving this illusion, right? In reality, the Buddha had already become enlightened before, but this, as in the form of Prince Siddhartha, the whole thing was like a teaching for us. Buddha manifested in such a way for us, right? Because that is the only way that we could see the Buddha, because Buddha in the form of Dharmakaya, we cannot see that, right? So from the sphere of ultimate expanse, then arises as Nirmanakaya, form body, right? And then within that, Sambhogakaya and what is it? Nirmanakaya, right? So the first, is Rupakaya, and Rupakaya, within that, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. And Nirmanakaya is more like in the Sambhogakaya is what we call the enjoyment body, and then Nirmanakaya is its, what's the English term? Emanation body, right? So the Buddha just manifested that. It was just an emanation, right? Something like a play, an illusion, if you will. So like this. So then why did the Buddha then give this illusion of dying, right? We call it Mahaparinirvana, but in reality it's really dying, right? It's dying without the mental delusions. Anybody can die, but when we die with mental delusions, then the cycle continues, right? But without the mental delusions, there is no more cycle. So it's called the great parinirvana, right? Mahaparinirvana. So we have these two kind of explanations. So then with the second explanation, then why did Buddha emanate that? It is because perhaps due to the karma of the disciples. The Buddha cannot emanate like this forever, because from the Buddha side, yes, we see the Buddha has the power, but then it's something like due to the limitation of us disciples that this is really our karma. We only had that karmic relation. We could only the people that came during that time had that, and it was time, right? So this is how we explain it, right? Very interesting way of explaining, isn't it? Somehow, with the first explanation, it may seem more realistic because this is it. That explanation somehow relates to us, right? In our present existence, it somehow fits better, right? So there are people, of course, who likes the first explanation, and then with the other explanation, then there are those of us who also follows that explanation, right? So it's really, you have that freedom to choose and to go with whichever makes more sense, or so sometimes the choice may seem a little mind-boggling. There's so many choice. Then it's like, what do I choose, right? What do I choose? It's very interesting. Very interesting. How we humans if I may speak on a very general way, this concept of an of the object of our refuge being eternal. Somehow, for me, that is very interesting, That is very interesting. Naturally, isn't it funny? Because as humans, I think the most thing we are most afraid of is mortality. This is the one thing that really makes us scared. So it's almost as if we had invented immortality, and we think about the object of our refuge being eternal. That gives us so much comfort, right? That gives us so much comfort, because if the ultimate object of our refuge was as mortal as us, then what is the point, So this is just, looking from a very, I think like a very non-Buddhist. So I hope that by the time I finish my talk, people will not accuse me of having lost all senses, But this is very interesting, Sometimes I think about this, and it's very interesting, because naturally mortality is probably the single, like the thing that really scares us, that really makes us feel uncomfortable, isn't it? Right? And then this way of explanation, even the Buddha, yes, is a Buddha because of his mental qualities. It's not because of this body. This body, this aggregate, it's impermanent, it's contaminated. And, that's Mahaparinirvana. That explanation is somehow, I think, I don't know if these days we have such Buddhist schools in existence. I know that there are allusions, is that right? There are references to such early Buddhist schools of thought that went with this theory, right? So do we currently have this kind of school of thoughts anymore? This, I'm not sure. So sometimes my job is to, try to give answers, and then in the process, try. The emphasis on try, of course. And then sometimes if I don't succeed, which is more likely, then I can try to perhaps sort of test your limits, perhaps annoy you a little bit with my this mindless babbling. So anyhow, why do I say this? I think for me, thinking like this and hearing this really is a way of preparing for in going forward, because problem formulation is so important. If we do not formulate the problems, then how do we deal with them when this is put on the table, right? So then I think to look at it from a holistic viewpoint, right? And then how to bring that, all together in our practice as a practitioner. This is very important. And going with this, like we started first the talk on Gaden Lagyama, and today we are now going with something like the essence of Lama Chöpa. this is for those of you in the know, this is in the tradition of the Gaden tradition or the Gelug tradition. And again, I want to remind all of us that in following the tradition of Je Tsongkhapa, of Je Rinpoche, then it is, I think, very important to have like an in-depth knowledge, to have an in-depth background of the Dharma, right? For example, like the Lamrim, for example, right? And then, as you know, Je Rinpoche's Lamrim, beginning with the four, what is it? That formulation, that four something, and then first beginning with the fact that there is no contradiction in the Dharma, right? Something like that. So this is very important, There is a reason why I think Je Rinpoche put that in the first place, Otherwise, we see, this contradicts with this scripture, that tradition contradicts with this tradition, and then if we are not careful, then we see, if we are not careful in approaching Buddha Dharma in general, or a particular tradition of the Dharma, for example, this tradition, the Gaden tradition, Gelug tradition, then we end up, or some of us, we end up looking negatively to the other traditions. We say, they explain it like this, but Je Rinpoche explains it this other way, and then they are wrong because Je Rinpoche cites from this great Indian author, and this is it. This is the truth, So if we do it like this, then I think this is quite sad, This is quite sad, because to really understand Je Rinpoche's tradition is to understand the intent of the great teacher, the Buddha, right? So Je Rinpoche's teachings or all the other traditions, Buddhist traditions, the point is the same. They all converge into the same point, right? So there is no doubt about that. So the more we learn about, the more we go in depth into Je Rinpoche's tradition, the more naturally, if we really understand Je Rinpoche's intent, then we will naturally appreciate all other traditions as well. And if we really understand the intent of the great teacher, the Buddha, then I think we will also appreciate the non-Buddhist traditions as well, right? So this, I think we should never forget that, to always keep that in the back of our mind as we go about into the details. Otherwise, then I think we have this problem of getting lost in the details and then sort of not seeing the bigger picture, and losing that. And what's that? That story of like 5 blind men, and then each of them touch a different part of the elephant, and then they describe elephant in their own ways, right? So then we might end up like one of those blind people. So to really bring the essence, this is, I think, very important, right? So what is the essence? Well, I think we have been talking about that for a few days, and it's quite clear, right? The essence is already very clear. Now, all we need to do is work on that. Just work with that. Work on that and work with that. And how to bring that to life, and how to sort of like become that, how to become it, I think this is very important. This separation it shouldn't be there, right? That if you really take on the practice, I think you become the practice. Ultimately you become the practice. It's just like with the deity, you meditate so much on the deity that in the end you become the deity, right? You meditate so much on the guru that you become the guru, right? And you meditate so much on the Buddha that you become the Buddha, right? So then this is what we call going beyond this dualism, going beyond all these dualistic thoughts, right? These dualistic thoughts. And the same thing with compassion, that if the way to practice compassion is that you become one with compassion, meaning you become one with the other. There is no more this separation of you and the other, right? So higher the practice is, I think this dualism will gradually, it will simply disappear, right? So that is really the essence. So with that, I think maybe we can, since it's the last day, we can have we can have early vacation, or I don't know, some early holiday, So I think this is maybe this is like a good point where we can call time. And so for the past few days, we have had this opportunity to meet everyone and to talk and to share, and I think to be in each other's company, right? And this is really so wonderful, right? But then at the end of the day, we each have to go back to wherever we come from, right? And then tomorrow is a new day, and then you have to step out into the real world, right? That's what you're going to do, right? Tomorrow, right? So that's, I think, when we have to. That's when we have to really put our dharma, our practice to the test. That's when we have to bring our practice to life. It's not on the nice comfortable chair or cushion and in the comfort of one's environment. It's not when one is in one's comfort zone where this thing has to come alive, but it's really when you step out there in the real world, which will present you with lots of materials to work with, right? So that's, I think, when you have to really test, when you really have to, what's this, like trial and error. So like this, then we have to try. And trying is really, I think, right now, this is our practice. Making the effort is our path. It's not that. The path isn't something that's like far out in the distance. The fact that you're trying now, that you're making in effort in trying to bring about some positive change. Yeah, it's simple as that. The path need not be so elaborate and so deep and abstract and whatnot, but you're already on the path. You're already making this effort. So now just it's really, I think, a question of time. So you just keep doing that and that, and what more can anyone ask, right? other than the efforts that you're making. So I think that's all I can say. So thank you very much. Thank you.